my name is Ryan Lane, and welcome to my review channel. So for today's movie, I will be directing Ambulance, directed by Michael Bay, and starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Abdul Mateen II, and Isa Gonzalez. So anyway, this film stars Gyllenhaal as Danny Sharp and Mateen II as Will Sharp. Anyway, they are adoptive brothers, and Will, he is in a bit of a rut. His wife is suffering from a disease. No idea what. The film does not explain. Anyway, said disease seems to be curable due to an experimental treatment that, due to the experimental nature, it is not covered by insurance, and as such, costs a lot of money. And so, with that in mind, Will basically goes to Danny and says, "Loan?" And to which he says, "How about bank robbery?" To which Will's like, "Okay, all right, all right." Anyway, so they go in the robbery, and well, things don't go to plan, because when do they ever in the movies? And in the disaster of a robbery, they end up shooting a cop and end up using that cop to help them get out of there via an EMT vehicle, in which they encounter Cam Thompson, played by Isa Gonzalez. So yeah, and the rest of the film is basically them just trying to evade the cops long enough to get out of the vehicle without getting caught. And also keeping the cop alive, because if the cop dies, well, basically the gloves will come off of the police department and they'll just go open season on them. So let's start with the good stuff. I did like the main trio of performers. Jake Gyllenhaal, he gives a good performance as a manipulative but caring, borderline sociopath who cares a lot about his adoptive brother Will, but it is clear his care for people doesn't extend much beyond him, beyond Will. And then there's Will. He's a former Marine, sort of falls into the "I gave my life for this country and now I'm in trouble." But he does give a good performance, though, as someone who loses his way, but is like, okay, I seriously need to reconsider what I've done. And then there's Isa Gonzalez. Now, she is probably my favorite character in the movie, playing Cam. Like, she's starts out as a nurse, well, not a nurse, an EMT professional, who sort of likes to compartmentalize her job. Like, once, the person leaves when she's in the moment, she is really caring. She's making the person seem like she cares, but once that person is out of the vehicle, she's like, Lindsay who? But however, she clearly goes through progression throughout the movie. However, there are a lot of problems with this movie. First off, the first half of the movie. The first half just rushes through a lot of character backstory. Like, the film feels like it's in a rush to get to the good stuff, that it fails to adequately and clearly communicate each character's backstory. It's like, okay, I'm sorry. Can you go through that again? Not to mention, it's also kind of introduced in an undramatized manner. Like, at one point, brothers Will and Danny, they're talking with each other, reminiscing in a way that people only reminisce in the movies when they need to catch the audience up on their backstories. And same goes for and also the tertiary characters, the cop characters. They kind of fall into the "I'm from LA, I know these streets, you're the FBI, you know nothing, you're just a tourist." But I will say there is an interesting dynamic with the FBI agent that's introduced later on in the film. It's not explored quite to its full potential, but it's revealed that he has a connection to one of the characters, and I don't think the film uses it to full effect, but it uses it to halfway effect. Also, another issue with the first half of the film, it's the humor. It's not good. Like, most of it falls flat, and there are moments where you will know. If you have seen a Michael Bay movie and seen awkward humor, you will know the moments. Like, for example, there's this, like the FBI mage I mentioned earlier. He's in couples therapy with his husband, and there's just a line where you go, yep, Michael Bay mandated that line be in there. Yeah. Also, product placement, it's just off the wall. I mean, it's not horrible. It's not, I mean, one of the characters doesn't take a Bud Light and just chug it a la Mark Wahlberg in Transformers Age of Extinction, but at one point, a character literally sort of practically advertises it. Like, Cam, she's literally drinking one of those 0% alcohols on the job, to which her partner on the job is like, really? Beer on the job? She's like, it's 0%. It's like, subtle movie, subtle. However, with all these complaints, also the action, like with the initial action scenes, specifically with regards to the bank robbery and the initial ambulance escape from said bank robbery, it's confusing as hell. The geography, the film doesn't do a good job of helping you keep track of where characters are, and so the tension, it's hard to maintain tension when you don't know where characters are and if they're making progress towards escaping or being killed by the cops. However, with all this in mind, once the second half of the movie kicks in, things get more interesting. It goes from being a repetitive lose them, drive faster type beats to actually more interesting beats where the FBI agent tries to interact with the Cam character and trying to manipulate the characters to get them to pull over and turn themselves in. And whether or not the cop is actually alive or not, there's just more interesting interaction. Also, there's a little bit more character shading that I mentioned earlier between one of the robbers and the FBI agent, and the awkward Michael Bay humor actually disappears, and some of the humor actually gets some laughs from me. Not a lot of laughs, and the humor isn't quite great, but there were a few chuckles, more so than in the beginning. And yeah, and so and then the ending is pretty good. So yeah, I guess with all that in mind, I will say this: the biggest flaw in this movie is the untapped potential, because like there are moments where characters divulge backstory, and I'm like, okay. Like, this happens multiple times. Like, the FBI agent drops, like, a bombshell of a revelation, and I thought, oh, okay, all right, take this far. And like I said earlier, it doesn't take it as far as I feel like it could have. Same goes for the Cam EMT character. Like, she, at one point, divulges some backstory, and to which I'm like, okay, like, develop that further? It just... So, yeah, so, I guess... with all that in mind, okay, I guess one more complaint. The cinematography. Again, in the beginning, it's like way too many stylized Steadicam crane shots and way too many close-ups. Again, the film eases up on the glide Steadicam shots in the beginning, but however, the slight over-reliance on close-up shots is still omnipresent in the latter half. And so... with all that in mind, the trio of actors give some good performances. They keep the film from succumbing to awkward Michael Bay humor. The action picks up in the second half of the film in that it becomes much more interesting and varied. And the humor becomes slightly better. So, I mean, overall, at the end of the day, I was entertained by the movie, I think. So... with that in mind, I will be giving Ambulance, or Ambu-LA Ants, 3 out of 5 stars. Anyway, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day.